The veteran's hands stopped mid-gesture. His entire body locked like a machine that had suddenly lost power. Queen Vescara watched from her throne as the human male dressed in the plain gray uniform of a diplomatic aide stood perfectly still in the center of her grand hall, his eyes fixed on something beyond her shoulder. Her guard shifted. Protocol demanded they respond to any threat, any unusual behavior in the presence of royalty, but Vescara raised one crystalline finger, halting them. The human wasn't reaching for a weapon. He wasn't making threatening movements. He was simply frozen, his face drained of color in a way she had learned meant profound distress among his kind. "Ambassador Trell," she said softly, addressing the Gentari diplomat who had brought the human delegation. "What is your aide looking at?" Trell turned, following the human's gaze. The ambassador's compound eyes widened. "Your Majesty, I believe he is looking at your daughter." Princess Shayla stood at the edge of the hall, barely 6 cycles old, her small hands pressed against the transparent barrier that separated the throne room from the garden beyond. She was watching something outside with the intense focus children brought to moments of discovery. The frozen human made a sound, a small, broken noise that barely qualified as speech. "Don't," he whispered. "Please don't." Vescara rose from her throne. The movement drew every eye in the hall except the human's. His remained locked on Shayla. Vescara followed his line of sight with practiced precision, scanning not just her daughter, but everything around her, every detail that might explain this reaction. The garden. The barrier. The maintenance shaft visible through the glass. The princess's small form silhouetted against the afternoon light. And then she saw it. The maintenance shaft's cover hung at an angle barely noticeable unless you knew what to look for. Below it, the garden's ornamental pool reflected the sky. Shayla stood less than 3 steps from the edge. The human took a step forward. His movement was wrong, too controlled, too careful, like someone walking through a minefield. "Security," Vescara said, her voice carrying clearly across the hall. "Clear the space around my daughter, now." The guards moved, but the human spoke again, louder this time, his voice cracking with strain. "Stop." Everyone stopped moving down. The absolute command in his tone made even Vescara pause. It was the voice of someone who had given orders when lives depended on instant obedience. "Why?" she asked. The human's throat worked. Sweat beaded on his forehead. "The shaft. The cover. It's wrong." "Explain," Vescara commanded. "I've seen this before." His words came faster now, tumbling over each other. "On Kethros Station. During the siege. The maintenance shafts were compromised. Someone left covers loose. Made them look secure, but they weren't. The weight distribution was off. When people stepped near them, the vibrations..." He didn't finish. Shayla moved, shifting her weight as she pressed closer to the glass, trying to get a better view of whatever held her attention outside. The human lunged forward. Vescara's guards reacted instantly, intercepting him 3 steps from the throne. They caught his arms, holding him back as he struggled against their grip with surprising strength. "Let me go. She's going to..." The sound was subtle. A grinding, scraping noise that most would have missed beneath the commotion of the guards restraining the human. But Vescara heard it. The maintenance shaft cover shifted. Not much. Just enough. "Release him," she commanded. "Your Majesty!" Now. The human ran, his diplomatic aid credentials forgotten, protocol abandoned. He sprinted across the polished floor toward the barrier between the throne room and the garden. His shoulder hit the control panel. The barrier began to slide open with agonizing slowness. He didn't wait. He squeezed through the gap while it was barely wide enough for his frame, his uniform tearing on the mechanism. Shayla turned at the sound, her young face curious and unafraid. "Hello," she said in her high, clear voice. "Are you here to play?" The human didn't answer. He was counting steps, calculating angles, his eyes flicking between Shayla and the maintenance shaft. The cover shifted again, the grinding sound louder now. A gap appeared beneath it, darkness visible where there should have been solid metal. "Princess," the human said, his voice carefully calm despite the terror in his eyes, "I need you to do something for me. Can you be very brave?" Shayla tilted her head, considering. "I'm already brave. Mother says so." "Then I need you to jump to me, right now. Don't take any steps, just jump. But jumping inside is against the rules." The cover shifted a 3rd time. Small pieces of metal rained down into the gap. The human extended his arms. "Your mother gives you permission?" "Don't you, Your Majesty." Vescara had moved to the barrier. She stood now at the threshold. every instinct screaming at her to rush forward to grab her daughter herself. But she trusted the fear in the human's eyes. She trusted the way he held himself between Shayla and whatever danger lurked in that shaft. "Shayla," she said softly, "jump to the kind human. Now." The princess smiled, delighted at this unexpected permission to break rules. She crouched, preparing to leap. The maintenance shaft cover gave way completely. It fell inward with a shriek of metal. The ground beneath it collapsed, revealing a drop into darkness that seemed to have no bottom. The vibrations from the collapse traveled through the garden floor. Shayla jumped. The human caught her midair, spinning away from the widening hole as the ground where she had been standing crumbled and fell. He held the small princess against his chest, his body between her and the destruction as the entire section of garden gave way with a roar of breaking stone and tearing earth. When the dust settled, the human knelt on solid ground 3 meters from the edge of a pit that had swallowed the ornamental pool, the decorative plants, and everything within a 5-meter radius of where Shayla had been standing. He was shaking. His arms remained locked around the princess, who seemed more fascinated than frightened by the dramatic turn of events. "That was exciting," she said brightly. "Can we do it again?" The human made a sound that might have been a laugh or a sob. Veskara couldn't tell. She moved forward carefully, testing each step before putting her weight down until she reached them. She knelt beside the human, placing her hand on his shoulder. "Release her," she said gently. "She's safe now." His muscles were locked, his entire body frozen again, as the immediate danger passed and shock set in. "Veteran," Veskara said, using the title she had just realized he deserved. "You've completed your mission. Stand down." Something in the military phrasing reached him. His arms loosened fractionally. Veskar carefully extracted her daughter from his grip, passing her to one of the guards who had approached cautiously from behind. Shayla protested, reaching back toward the human. "But I want to thank him properly," she insisted. "You will," Veskara promised, "after we make sure he's well." The human's hands were empty now, but still shaped as if holding a child. He stared at them, then at the pit, then at Shayla being carried away to safety. The color hadn't returned to his face. "Kethro Station," he said quietly, "during the siege. I was security chief. We found the compromised shafts after people fell. 16 people. I was supposed to check them. I was supposed to—" "You checked this one," Veskara interrupted firmly. "You saw what others missed. You saved my daughter. I froze. I saw her standing there and I just froze. If I hadn't... But you did." Veskara stood, extending her hand to help him up. "You moved when it mattered." His grip was weak, his legs unsteady as he rose. Veskara gestured to her guards. "Get the royal physician, and someone contact Ambassador Trell. I want to know everything about this man's service record." As the guards moved to obey, Veskara studied the human veteran's face. She had seen warriors before, had fought alongside some during the border conflicts of her youth. She recognized the look in his eyes. It was the expression of someone who had been prepared for battle, prepared for violence, prepared for noble sacrifice. But no one had prepared him for seeing a child standing unknowingly on the edge of death and having to act while his own trauma tried to paralyze him. "What is your name?" she asked. "Marcus Chen, Your Majesty. Junior diplomatic aide. Before that, security chief on Kethro Station until I resigned my commission. Because of the 16 who fell." "Yes, ma'am." Veskara nodded slowly. She gestured toward the pit, where her engineering teams were already arriving to investigate. "How did you know? The shaft was barely visible from that distance." Marcus swallowed hard. The angle of the cover, the shadow underneath it, the way the princess was standing, the distribution of weight on that section of floor. It was exactly like Kethros. Exactly. Someone had sabotaged it to look secure until the right conditions triggered the collapse. Sabotage. The word fell like ice into the room. Veskara's guards tensed, hands moving to weapons. "You're certain?" "I spent 6 months investigating what happened on Kethros. I know sabotaged maintenance shafts. That wasn't an accident, Your Majesty. Someone wanted that section to fail. They wanted it to look natural when it did." Ambassador Trell had appeared at the barrier, his compound eyes wide with horror. "Your Majesty, I swear I had no knowledge." "I believe you, Ambassador, but your aide just uncovered an assassination attempt. I need to know everything about how your delegation was selected. Who chose him specifically to be here today?" Trell's mandibles clicked nervously. The posting was voluntary, Your Majesty. Junior staff could request assignment to diplomatic functions. Marcus specifically requested this one. All eyes turned to Marcus. He met Viscara's gaze steadily despite the tremor in his hands. I heard Princess Shayla would be present, he said quietly. After Kethros, I couldn't go back to security work. Couldn't trust myself. But I thought if I could just observe one more time, just prove to myself I could see the dangers, could spot the signs. He looked down at his shaking hands. I never thought I'd actually have to move. I thought I'd just watch and confirm I wasn't broken, that I could still see. A broken man would have stayed frozen. A broken man wouldn't have moved when it mattered. I almost didn't. I saw her standing there and everything from Kethros came back. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. I just kept seeing the people who fell because I missed the signs. The royal physician arrived, a small Pelarian female with delicate hands and a case full of medical instruments. She approached Marcus carefully, her scanner already active. Elevated heart rate, significant adrenaline spike, signs of acute stress response, she reported to Viscara. He needs rest and observation, Your Majesty. He needs recognition, Viscara corrected. She turned to her chief of security, a grizzled Korthan male who had served her family for 30 years. Commander Vex, I want a full investigation. Every person who had access to that garden in the past week. Every maintenance record. Every security log. Someone tried to kill my daughter and made it look like an accident. Vex's expression was grim. It will be done, Your Majesty. Should I detain the diplomatic delegation? But watch them. Especially watch who seems most interested in whether Mr. John Chen is being questioned or praised. She looked back at Marcus. Did anyone know you would recognize sabotaged maintenance shafts? Marcus thought carefully. My service record is public. Anyone with access to military databases could know I investigated the Kethros incident, but my request to attend this function was approved only 2 days ago. Whoever set this up had to work fast. Or they had it ready and waiting for an opportunity, Viscara mused. A trap set and baited, just waiting for the right trigger. When they learned a Kethros veteran would be present, someone who might recognize the signs, they couldn't call it off without drawing suspicion. So they hoped I wouldn't see it, Marcus said, or that I'd freeze completely. That the trauma would keep me paralyzed. It nearly did, Viscara acknowledged. What changed? Marcus was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. She asked if I was there to play. Your daughter. She was so small and so trusting, and she had no idea she was standing on the edge of death. Just like the children on Kethros had no idea. But this time I could see it. This time I had a chance to move before, instead of cataloging the failure after. His hands clenched into fists. I couldn't let it happen again. I couldn't add her face to the ones I see when I close my eyes. She had her own collection of faces, her own ghosts from the border wars. Every commander did, every person who had held lives in their hands and felt some of them slip through. Come, she said, making a decision. The physician will check you over, but I want you present for what happens next. Your Majesty, protocol suggests? Vex began. Mr. Chen's instincts saved her. I'll trust those instincts a while longer. She led the way back into the throne room. Shayla had been taken to the family quarters under heavy guard, but the rest of the diplomatic delegation remained, clustered nervously at the far end of the hall. Viscara's enhanced vision caught the small details, who seemed genuinely shocked, who wore practiced expressions of concern, who was watching Marcus with calculation rather than curiosity. There. A Zentari junior diplomat, one of Trell's administrative staff. His compound eyes tracked Marcus with an intensity that didn't match his unimportant status. When Marcus entered the room, the diplomat's antennae twitched in a pattern Viscara recognized as distress. She filed the observation away and ascended her throne. Marcus stood to one side, the physician still scanning him periodically. Ambassador Trell approached, his movements stiff with formal contrition. Your Majesty, the human delegation offers its deepest apologies for this disruption. If there is anything, there is, Viscara interrupted. I want Mr. Chen assigned to my personal security details, effective immediately. The room went silent. Trell's antennae froze mid-gesture. Marcus's head snapped up, shock replacing the exhaustion on his face. Your Majesty, I'm not qualified. I resign my commission. I can't. You just proved you can, Viscara said calmly. You saw what my own security missed. You acted when others would have hesitated. You saved my daughter's life. That qualifies you better than any credential. I hesitated. If you hadn't given me permission to move, you assessed the situation and calculated the risk of acting without authority versus the risk of delay. That's not freezing. That's thinking. She leaned forward, her voice carrying clearly across the hall. I need people who think, Mr. Chen. People who see dangers others miss. People who understand what it means to fail and are determined never to fail again. Marcus looked like he wanted to argue further, but something in her expression stopped him. He straightened, some of the tremor leaving his frame. I'll do my best, Your Majesty.
You already have?
She turned her attention back to the assembled diplomats. The rest of you are dismissed. Ambassador Trell, you and your senior staff will remain for questioning regarding the sabotage. I'm sure you understand the necessity. The diplomats filed out, most of them moving with the quick, nervous energy of people who wanted to be anywhere else. But the Zentari junior diplomat Veskara had noticed earlier, moved slowly, his eyes still fixed on Marcus. Commander Vex noticed too. He positioned himself between the diplomat and the exit, his hand resting casually on his weapon. Your name? He asked. The diplomat's antennae twitched again. Kelvin Shard, sir, junior administrative clerk. How long have you served with Ambassador Trell's delegation? 3 standard months, sir. And your duties? Logistical coordination. Scheduling? Facility preparation for diplomatic events. Facility preparation. That would include reviewing layouts, checking safety systems, possibly even coordinating with maintenance staff. Commander Vex, she said quietly, detain Mr. Shard for questioning. Shard didn't run, didn't protest. He simply looked at Marcus with an expression of profound frustration. You weren't supposed to be there, he said. The posting was supposed to go to Jeremiah Koss. He requested it first. But then you put in your request and they chose you instead because of your background. You ruined everything. Marcus stared at him. You tried to kill a child because your plan got disrupted? I tried to eliminate a future threat, Shard corrected, his voice taking on the flat quality of true fanaticism. The princess represents the next generation of Korthan expansion. Without her, the succession would fall to the queen's brother, who opposes further territorial growth. The treaty zones would remain stable. Thousands of Zentari lives would be saved. She's 6 years old, Marcus said, his voice hollow with disbelief. She's a symbol. Symbols have power. Shard looked at Veskara directly. You know this, Your Majesty. You know your daughter's survival means continued conflict on the border. Her death today would have secured peace for a generation. Veskara felt rage building in her chest, hot and sharp, but she kept her voice level, channeling the fury into cold precision. Take him to the detention center. Formal charges are assassination attempt, sabotage, and treason against the treaty accords. Alert the Zentari High Council that we have one of their citizens in custody for direct attack on the royal family. Vex moved quickly, cuffing Shard's wrists and leading him away. The Zentari didn't resist, didn't struggle. He went quietly, still muttering about symbols and necessary sacrifices. When the door closed behind them, Veskara allowed herself a moment to simply sit and breathe. The throne room emptied of everyone except her closest advisors, the physician, and Marcus. The human stood awkwardly to one side, looking like he wasn't quite sure whether he should stay or go. Sit, Veskara commanded, gesturing to the steps below her throne. Before you fall down. The physician immediately knelt beside him, running more scans. You're experiencing delayed shock, she said gently. Perfectly normal after the adrenaline spike you just went through. I'm going to give you something to stabilize your system, but you need rest. Security review. Investigation. If there's one saboteur, there might be more. How? There will be, Veskara agreed. Which is why you're going to eat, rest, and recover while Commander Vex handles the initial investigation. When you're functional again, you'll review his findings and add your insights. Right now, you're running on fumes and trauma. You're no good to anyone like this. It was the right approach, framing it as tactical necessity rather than weakness. Marcus nodded slowly, accepting the logic even if his instincts screamed at him to stay alert. The physician administered an injection. Almost immediately, some of the tension left Marcus's frame. His eyes began to droop. There's a private suite in the East Wing, Veskara said. You'll stay there tonight, under guard. Not because I don't trust you, because someone just tried to kill my daughter, and I'm not taking chances with anyone who might be a target because they disrupted those plans. Okay, Marcus mumbled, the medication clearly taking effect. But tomorrow I need to check all the maintenance systems. Every shaft, every access panel, every structural joint. Can't miss anything. Can't let people fall. His words trailed off as sleep claimed him. The physician caught him as he slumped sideways, lowering him gently to the steps. "He'll sleep for about 6 hours," she reported. "When he wakes, he'll be disoriented and possibly emotionally fragile. The medication helps with the physical shock, but the psychological trauma will still be there." "See that he has someone with him when he wakes," Viscara ordered. "Someone calm. Someone who can help ground him if the nightmares come." She watched as guards carefully lifted Marcus and carried him from the throne room. So small, she thought. Humans were such small creatures compared to her kind. Fragile, short-lived. And yet this one had moved when her own guards had hesitated, had seen danger through the fog of his own trauma, had saved her daughter despite every instinct telling him to stay frozen and safe. Ambassador Trell approached cautiously, his antennae low in a gesture of submission and apology. "Your Majesty, I cannot express how deeply I regret. Shard played his role well, but I need to know how he got into your delegation. His credentials were perfect, references impeccable. He came highly recommended from the Zentari Diplomatic Corps." Trell's mandibles clicked in distress. "I never suspected. He was so efficient, so helpful with logistics. He volunteered for extra duties, always made sure events ran smoothly." "Too perfect," Viscara mused. "Someone spent considerable resources placing him. This wasn't a lone fanatic. He had support, infrastructure, backing." "The border factions," Trell said quietly. "There are elements within my own government who oppose the treaty, who believe Korthan expansion threatens our survival. I've reported their activities before, but concrete evidence has been difficult to obtain." "You have it now. Shard will be tried and questioned. His network will be exposed." Vescara stood, descending from her throne to stand level with the ambassador. "This isn't your fault, Trell, but it is your problem. Your government must address the factions working against the peace." "Agreed, Your Majesty. I'll contact the High Council immediately. They'll want to send investigators, offer reparations, demonstrate their commitment to the treaty. I'll accept their investigators. As for reparations," Vescara paused, considering. "Tell them to establish a fund for the families of Kethro Station. Marcus Chen has carried that burden alone for too long. Let his people see that their losses are remembered and honored." Trell's antennae lifted in surprise and approval. "A generous gesture, Your Majesty. I'll convey your terms." After the ambassador left, Viscara returned to her throne and allowed herself finally to feel the full weight of what had almost happened. Her daughter, her small, curious, trusting daughter, had been standing on the edge of death, and she hadn't known. Without Marcus, without his broken history and his desperate need to prove he could still see dangers, Shayla would have taken one more step and fallen into darkness. The debt was beyond measuring, beyond words. And tomorrow, when Marcus woke, she would need to make him understand that he had earned more than just a position on her security detail. He had earned her eternal gratitude and the gratitude of her entire kingdom. But tonight, she needed to see her daughter. Needed to hold Shayla and remind herself that the small princess was safe and alive, and blissfully unaware of how close she had come to dying. Vescara stood and walked toward the family quarters. Behind her, servants moved quietly through the throne room, beginning the work of documenting and investigating the garden collapse. Tomorrow would bring questions, trials, political complications. But tonight, she would simply be a mother grateful beyond measure for the traumatized veteran who had moved when it mattered most. When she reached Shayla's room, the princess was sitting in bed, surrounded by stuffed animals and guard-approved toys. She looked up as Viscara entered, her face brightening with joy. "The guard said I was very brave today. Is that true?" Viscara sat on the edge of the bed and pulled her daughter into a careful embrace. "Very brave. You listened when someone told you there was danger and you moved quickly." "The human veteran was scared," Shayla said thoughtfully. "I could see it in his eyes, but he still came to help me." "Is that what brave means?" "Yes," Viscara said softly. "That's exactly what brave means. Acting even when you're afraid. Then I want to be brave like him when I grow up." Viscara felt tears prickling at her eyes, an unusual sensation for her kind. She blinked them away and held her daughter closer. "You already are, little one." "You already are." Outside, night fell over the palace. In the East Wing, Marcus Chen slept dreamlessly for the first time in months, his mind finally quiet. And in the detention center, Colvin Shard sat in his cell, knowing he had failed and that his failure would bring consequences far beyond his own fate. The story of the frozen veteran and the princess would spread through the diplomatic circles, would be told and retold, would become legend. But the truth was simpler and more profound than any legend. A broken man had proven he wasn't as broken as he thought. A child had been saved by someone who couldn't save the ones who came before. And a queen had learned that sometimes the most unlikely heroes were the ones carrying the heaviest burdens. In the morning there would be work to do. Investigations to conduct, security to strengthen, political fallout to manage. But tonight, everyone who mattered was safe. And that, for now, was enough.